Hey, it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another episode of Treknalysis. Wesley Crusher.
Shut up, Wesley.
Shut up, kid.
Enough!
The boy wonder, the bright young prodigy that found himself on the crew of the Enterprise in Star Trek The Next Generation. And quite possibly Picard's son, but that's a fan theory for another video. However, Wesley Crusher, boy genius, in addition to pulling the Enterprise out of sticky situations, has managed to earn himself the ire of the fan base. But why? What is it about this character that everyone seems to hate? Well, that's what I'm going to explore today. Now, full disclosure, I myself am not a fan of Wesley Crusher, but I also want to be fair. I'm going to examine what went wrong with this character, if there was anything that did work for the character, and even what could have been done differently. So, let's boldly go as I discuss one of Trek's most unpopular characters.
It's a good thing you're cute, Wesley, or you could really be obnoxious.
Alright, so first things first. What went wrong? What is it about Wesley Crusher that just doesn't work? Well, after so many rewatches of Star Trek The Next Generation, I think I narrowed it down to 3 points. For one thing, I as the viewer have a hard time relating to Wesley. But Wesley's a teenager. Why should you, an adult on YouTube, relate to a teenager? Well, for one thing, I don't have that problem with something like The Karate Kid or One Crazy Summer. They're both movies centered around teenagers, but I like the characters just fine and can understand their struggles. Movies like The Karate Kid and One Crazy Summer hit upon the teenage experience, trying to find that one thing you're good at, standing up to the bully, finding a mentor to help you through life, stuff like that, in addition to the wackiness. These are experiences that transcend age and speak to the human condition, whether you're young or old. So yeah, I relate to these characters. Now, let's look at Wesley. Yes, Wesley is a teenager, but what besides his age makes Wesley a teenager? Is he trying to find that one thing he's good at? No, in the first episode he sits himself down in Picard's chair and knows all the controls and displays. Okay, so he's a nerd. The nerdy teenager is a common trope. So does he struggle to fit in like nerdy teenagers do? No, not really. Sure, he went through part of the first season being referred to as the boy by the senior officers, but he's pretty quickly accepted by them, even made into an acting ensign 5 episodes into the show. He's not even shown to struggle with getting friends his own age. Heck, he's even capable of landing himself a girlfriend on his own. Okay, he's smart and has a decent social life. Surely this would cause him to slack off and even neglect some of his responsibilities, right? Nope! Wesley's constantly working on a science project or doing something for school. The nerd doesn't even break for video games. Even his mom thinks he's a square.
What were you doing when you were 17?
Probably getting into more trouble than Wesley, I can assure you.
Isn't that what 17's supposed to be?
Along similar lines, the second problem with Wesley is that he's too perfect. And this problem is only exasperated because it's laid on so thick early in the show to the point that I think it permanently damaged the character. I already mentioned his convenient expertise with Picard's chair and encounter at Farpoint, but there are other examples of this. How about 5 episodes in where the Traveler compares him to Mozart?
Such musical genius as I saw in one of your ship's libraries, one called Mozart. Wesley is such a person.
Or what about the time he was given command of his own team in Season 2? And you just know the team was loving working under a kid. Or what about that time he talked over Barclay, putting down his suggestion? Barclay, who went through the academy and made it to the rank of lieutenant, being shown up by a kid. A kid that was the source of a mean nickname for him.
I'm going to look for a surge in the transfer coils.
Oh, a coil surge wouldn't have resulted in field dissipation. Poor Broccoli.
Do you see how this doesn't endear Wesley to the audience? And if that wasn't bad enough, the third point that I think worked against Wesley was that the crew was dumbed down to make him look smart. The crew, who went to the academy, who had enough experience in Starfleet to earn rankings, ends up missing important stuff that a teenage kid still in school picked up on. The most egregious example of this is when Lore impersonated Data and was very clearly Lore. It's just so frustrating seeing a crew who was perfectly capable of figuring things out previously suddenly become so oblivious, and the one who has to point it all out is the kid? Like, how could this crew not see something's not right with Data? Heck, even Tasha voiced her concerns early on, and Picard still did nothing? To a lesser extent, another example occurs towards the end of the third season when Riker, Deanna, and Waxana were captured by the Ferengi, and Riker used static to send a message to the Enterprise. No one, including Data the android, recognized there was a pattern to it. Except Wesley.
It was the static.
Where are you going?
Recognizing the rhythm from a song played at a recent conference. You mean to tell me Data, who was able to figure out that his mother was an android because she blinked funny, couldn't recognize a pattern in Ferengi static, but the kid could? Like, how?
Mr. Crusher is correct, sir.
Okay, I spent a lot of time talking about what went wrong with Wesley as a character. So now it's time to say something nice. Did anything go right for Wesley? Believe it or not, there are some nice things to say about young Wesley. For one thing, the idea behind the character isn't a bad one. The Crushers, that is Beverly and Wesley Crusher, showed a family on a starship. Beverly is a widowed mother, and Wesley her teenage son. Heck, we've seen a similar format work, and work really well, on DS9 with Benjamin Sisko, a widowed father, raising his teenage son Jake. The idea of showing how families raise their kids in space, the final frontier, is an idea worth exploring. If nothing else, we can at least acknowledge that the idea behind Wesley was a good idea, even if the execution of said idea didn't work. For all the missteps that happened, there's at least one redeeming episode for Wesley, and that episode is The First Duty. You might remember I mentioned it during my Top 10 Star Trek The Next Generation episodes video, and it's on that list for good reason. It's a great episode. It does a lot to humanize Wesley and show that he's a flawed individual who had to get smacked down.
The first duty of every Starfleet officer is to the truth.
Now, if you can't find it within yourself to stand up and tell the truth about what happened, you don't deserve to wear that uniform.
The dilemma he finds himself in is very relatable to everyone. Do you stand by your friends, or do you stand by what's right? Heck, he even gives in to peer pressure during that episode. This is Wesley acting like a teenager. The episode simply wouldn't have worked if we got,
I'm with Starfleet. We don't lie.
I know I did a lot of complaining in this video, but what about offering solutions? What could have been done to salvage Wesley? Honestly, just writing him to be a believable teenager could have helped a lot. Now, I know teenagers can be annoying, except the ones watching this video. You guys are cool. But I think if they struck a balance between Wesley being a kid that his age makes him, and a member of the crew with a natural talent but needing someone to mentor and guide him, it would have gone a long way. Would he have been a fan favorite? Maybe, maybe not. But in my opinion, it would have been better than what we got. I just can't help but think of Jake, Sisko, and Nog on DS9 and how good of characters they are. Why were they good characters? Largely because they were believable as kids. Jake was a good kid, he went to school, he didn't give his dad a lot of trouble, heck, he got along with his father, but he still goofed off with Nog and would land himself in trouble every so often. He didn't have much direction of what he wanted to do in his life, but he discovered he loved writing and became a writer. Nog was the juvenile delinquent on the station, but he had the capacity to grow into a serious Starfleet officer, which wouldn't have happened if Jake didn't teach him how to read or help him with school. Both characters had growth and matured into believable adults, and it's a joy to watch DS9 all the way through and see the characters grow. Think about it. How good would Wesley's character have been if we saw him grow throughout the show? To see him start out unsure of himself and then slowly come into his own and finish strong by the end of the show. Let's face it, Wesley started out as practically a perfect character, and for the most part stayed that way. That is, until his last two appearances where he's shown to be flawed, and it was well done, and then a little jerk during his last episode. Sorry, but he kinda was in Journey's End.
I don't need you telling me how to behave.
I shouldn't have to.
I'm pretty sure most of Wesley's problems came down to bad writing for the character. Sure, maybe the direction could have been better. Heck, maybe Will Wheaton as a young actor might be partially, but not completely, responsible. Maybe he just wasn't the best fit for the character. I don't know. But ultimately, there's only so much the actor and even the director can do if the writing just isn't there. If the foundation isn't strong, how can we expect the structure to stand? But that's just my take on the character of Wesley Crusher.
Please don't interrupt me, Wesley.
I'm sorry, sir.
But now what do you think? What are your thoughts on the character of Wesley Crusher? Did you love him? Did you hate him? Do you think he was the victim of bad writing, or was it something else? Please leave comments below and discuss. I always encourage thoughtful, respectful conversation and debate in my comments section, and I think this is an interesting topic to explore. As always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Treknalysis. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
I'm with Starfleet. We don't lie.